to Modern Home Masterminds with beSpoke Brokers. I'm Shauna Glazier, designated broker and owner.
And I'm Brittany Williamson, associate broker. Shauna and I are beSpoke real estate, but we're also your guides to modern luxury across the entire state of Arizona.
Each week, we chat with masterminds shaping the modern spaces. Do you want to get a behind-the-scenes look at your design-build team's processes? Well, open communication and teamwork will lead you to a successful project.
From architects to builders, designers, and more, let's explore the art of modern living together.
All right, welcome back, listeners. When you picture a modern home with show-stopping details like custom steel, woodwork, and one-of-a-kind architectural elements, do you ever wonder who actually makes these pieces possible? Well, today we're talking with a team that turns bold design vision into reality.
That's right. Today we're joined by Emery and Mikhail Gladchenko from the Guild, the in-house fabrication studio at 180 Degrees Design Build. The Guild is a collective of craftsmen specializing in custom wood, steel, and concrete work, partnering with architects and designers to engineer, prototype, and build highly detailed architectural features.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I think we should start with the foundation. Can you describe to our listeners what exactly is the Guild and how did it come to be?
The Guild is a sister company to 180 Degrees. We specialize in, as you mentioned, in concrete, metal, and wood elements. But we are truly kind of material agnostic because of Evan's and I background. So we will work in plastics, thermoplastics, or resins or other composites. The history behind the Guild was trying to solve the age-old problem of what's drawn and what's built and get closer to the design intent with sometimes very difficult details. So the idea is let's create a team that won't be afraid of tackling those challenges. And that's how the Guild kind of came by.
Interesting.
And that was put in part by everybody at 180. They were looking for like high-level craftsmen. So they sort of had this idea, how could we take that all in-house as opposed to, relying on all these other trades and have a little bit more control over the process.
So how'd they find you guys?
Evan and I had, back in the day, in the old life, we had a digital fabrication studio. And I don't remember how we met James, but we met James back then. Worked with them on a few projects. And then we went off and did some R&D, did some manufacturing. And then through COVID, we kind of got reconnected again. I was working outside of their space with another architect. We're building these 2 ADU units for a client in LA. And I kind of saw the shop, and I'm like, well, that's cool. I didn't know you guys were kind of building up that Guild idea. And it felt like I could have helped in trying to get a little more structure in there and things like that. And so that's kind of how I got in there. And then after we started growing a little bit of legs.
I was working in manufacturing, in shipping container manufacturing, like a research and development there. So, and Mikhail called me up and was like, hey, do you want to like build something over at 180? It's the Guild. And we're going to sort of like spearhead this thing. So I was like, yeah, sounds great. Especially after, years of trying to do it ourselves, way early on and understanding, the market in Phoenix. I felt like it was a good opportunity. And then once we got to 180, we were like, all right, they gave us the backbone to sort of grow with it and push it. So
is the Guild exclusively with 180?
The Guild is part of 180, but we work with all kinds of different architects, GCs, landscape architects. So we're not exclusively working on 180 degree projects. We'll highlight some of them today that are part of 180, part not 180. But we've done stuff as simple as like repairing a gate for David Michael Miller to working on Ravenscroft or Desert Botanical Gardens. So our range.
I feel like we should plug to our listeners what 180. I know we described a little bit, but we've worked with 180 and they were on our podcast. So if our listeners haven't seen that podcast, go back and listen. They're one of our favorite design build teams in Arizona that specialize in modern architecture and some really neat projects. So it's great to have you guys on here too. All right. Thank you for clarifying those answers.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit kind of how the Guild has evolved, not only in what you're capable of doing, but also in kind of what clients expect of you?
We're like always evolving in some sort of way. And there's always a new manufacturing technique that comes around, or a client that comes in and wants to use a material in a certain way, or has a really interesting form that they're trying to achieve that's like difficult to do through traditional means. So in that sense, I don't think we'll ever not involve, just the default state of what's happening. In terms of the client, recently, we're actually currently still working on the project, but almost wrapping it up. There's some clients that come in and they're now educated on quality, what can happen and what they can expect. So that is one of our kind of favorite people to work with, because not only are they educated on what can happen, they're also like, oh, can we do a little bit more? Can we do a little bit more? Because how we work is we work in a collaborative way, whether it's interior design, landscape architect, or another general contractor. We like to take the idea, figure out what are the core items that have to exist, and then start building on that and figure out how do we get there? What process we need to use, what material we might need to go with, what technique we have to deploy, whether it's done in the shop, out in the field, kind of a variety of items.
So you're constantly solving problems and figuring things out.
That's like, to me, that's the most favorite part of the job, is always having a new challenge to solve. We'll show some projects that are 3D printed concrete, that at the time we did this was, I think, about 2 years ago now. This was the second project that was getting 3D printed concrete. The first one was a presidential library.
Oh, wow.
So like working on a lot of these first, some people might run away from them because they are difficult, they are intimidating. But I personally, and I know Evan is very much like me, we kind of run towards it because it's like, well, that's cool, that's different. Let's figure it out.
And it's always with the designer's like end goal in mind, right? Because a lot of times you'll come to trying to build that thing and the design will have to start to suffer because of our training as architects. Like, I feel like we are sensitive to the design, so we know that's why it's more of a collaborative process, as opposed to, all right, what do you want us to build, and we'll build it. It's like, let's talk about what the overall design needs to be so that we know where we can, push and pull and try to make the thing actually, get built.
Yeah, and usually pushing and pulling is only because of the budgetary constraint. I don't think we have came across a project that like truly can't be built. It's just a matter of costing might be a little bit
Someone
too
gonna
much.
pay for it.
Yeah.
What about, can you walk us through a project where your fabrication capabilities allowed you to push design boundaries, something that would have been nearly impossible with conventional subcontractors?
Yeah. So it's a cast in place wall for the 180 degrees. So we were tasked, or at least I was tasked early on, with designing a wall that was representational of the old 180 degrees logo. So there was a logo where there was like a forest amongst the trees. I don't know what sort of synonyms or whatever they were going for in their old logo, but I was tasked with abstracting that and making that into a cast in place wall. So that process was about abstracting something and then taking that and actually making it something that we could fabricate in-house. So, and we always sort of start with the overall design aesthetic, and then the next step is always to prototype, right? So we really don't want to come into something without understanding at a smaller scale how it works, so that we can scale that up to the larger project. And in the case of the cast in place, we did that pretty extensively because we knew that would scale up to, let's say, 10 different panels. So by focusing on that one, we were able to dial in that process so that once we went to the full wall, we were pretty figured out on the process, and front loaded, we like to say, so that we essentially figure out all the problems we're going to have like really early on. So.
Yeah, and this, for our listeners, this is what we're looking at, and we can keep scrolling through some photos here, but this is an entry wall, like a feature wall when you're walking into the office, the 180 office or the Guild office. And it is a showstopper. You stop and kind of stare at it before you even want to enter the building and try and understand what's going on.
Yeah, one of the other cool parts about this project is we actually won an adaptive reuse award for it. And that was because all the liners for the concrete forming were actually reused into artwork. So a lot of the people at 180 actually have them in their home. They've been upcycled.
That's
How
very
many-
Some of them
neat.
are painted.
How much, if you guys keep going through the photos, I think we have some pictures of the art.
Mhm.
How much art was made out of it? How many pieces do you know?
I think it's 12 panels total. So
I think we only have one panel like reserved at the shop left.
Mhm.
And that's just in case for future prototyping.
Mhm.
But yeah, that panel would have went too.
so there's the full wall.
Yeah.
That's the wall.
Yeah, that's each one of those ends up getting upcycled to either somebody at 180 or people that were looking for art,
Friends and family.
friends and family. The other interesting thing about the wall was trying to figure out how to make the thing work from an engineering perspective. So we have very complex pattern that we're sort of going for, but typically the formwork wants to fall on a standard grid. So we work pretty extensively with the engineer to make sure that all of the actual structural connections for the formwork are inside of the pattern and integrated in that, so it doesn't sort of break the pattern itself.
Yeah, they're there, but they're not obvious. So you never notice until you actually point them
And
out.
that's typically not what engineers like to see, which is a randomized
Right.
pattern. They
Right.
like it, they're very
Mhm.
regimented.
Look at
So
that.
it was
That's
it
so
was
cool.
quite a back and forth with the engineer to get it to work structurally.
Any
Yeah.
birds try to make any nests in those holes yet?
Not yet,
No?
but I'm
No,
sure
you can
soon.
see there's if you can see them, there's in some of the spheres there's little holes which were where the form ties went through.
Got it.
But
I think we have a few other projects that we can go through also.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the entry to the building. It's really pretty. Oh, there's some of the art.
Yep.
That's very neat. I love the fact that it was reused.
yeah, there's a lot of manufacturing work goes into them, so it's nice to see them get used as artwork somewhere else.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm excited for you guys to talk about this project.
I am too, because I am very familiar with this house. This was the Byrnes Residence that Will Bruder initially designed.
Beautiful
Um,
design.
Beautiful design, but it was lacking some things when it was last sold.
Mhm.
It didn't have a pool.
Mhm.
It didn't have much shaded area.
Mhm.
And you came in and helped change that. It looks
Yeah,
like.
our design team did absolutely incredible job on a complement to a very iconic piece.
Mhm.
This was one of our early projects for Evan and I when we joined. There's a few slides that you'll see for those of you who are watching, some of the kind of behind the scenes and how we got there. As Evan mentioned, we try to front load everything as much as we can. This building is mesmerizing to look at, but it's really difficult to build in because there's not a single wall that's plumb
No.
on the outside. So every surface in there is tilted in at least two directions. So the wall is tilted on the left side, that CMU wall is tilted in two directions. The roof plane is tilted in two directions. And the design team wanted to have this really cool moment where the inside and outside structure comes through to create the shade. This another plane that slips under it. So what we end up actually doing there is we 3D scan the building, and it wasn't enough accuracy to build from, but it was gave us a really good idea on how to come up with a plan to build it. So we build everything up in the air, flat, so we can check plumb, level, all of that fun stuff. And then we actually cranked it up and tilted it in two different planes and sucked it back to the wall and got it welded out. So once it's all said and done, you just see this beautiful piece floating, but there's about 2.5 tons of steel that's floating in like 2 columns
Wow.
in there.
So it just continues with that slot canyon kind of design.
Yep. We used a lot of detailing to complement the house, as you can see in that photo. When we're building it flat, one end of the roof, there's about an inch of space, and then there's 2 feet on the other side. So
Yeah.
we found this one moment where we think we can build the whole thing like just here, not any lower, not any higher. So that was a
captures-
fun build.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's incredible to work with. Like the block next to you is just some mason that had probably decades of experience setting all these blocks so precise, so beautifully, so clean. Is just it's honestly an honor to some of the projects we got a chance to work on is like an hour just to be there, not to mention be able to complement it.
Do you have any projects that have looked incredible digitally, but maybe haven't come together in real life like you thought they would?
If they were built, then no. Usually it would be we'll work something out digitally and something else wouldn't allow it to get built, either time frame constraint or budgetary constraint, or just the client moves in a completely different direction. As we've designed some stage sets and a few other things that, and built some of them too. But so far we haven't been able to, or not being able to, we haven't been given the opportunity to figure out something we can't figure out. So looking forward to that day.
But we are sometimes
For the
we
challenge.
Yeah.
sometimes we have the site conditions that make it a lot harder. So in the case of the 3D printed concrete, we have to make a circle, right? And
Yeah, let's go. We have some photos of the next project up here, which was this 3D printed concrete, you said?
Yeah, so this
There we go.
project,
This-
we're working with the landscape architect, super talented team, the green room. Matt Thomas had this really interesting vision in creating these beautiful big objects that stand on their own but complement the rest of the hardscape and landscape. This space was actually all of the outside was just kind of this desolate like desert space, and he transformed that space incredibly. So he ended up partnering with a company that's called Picus 3D out of Utah, and their specialty is 3D printed concrete in the factory setting. So they don't do anything on site,
So cool.
but they can do a lot of big things off site. So he started building a team. Okay, so I have the design. We might have a really cool product that we can try to utilize and achieve form that hasn't been seen before here. Now we need somebody to actually put this stuff together. So that's where we came in and worked together in a very collaborative way between all three teams, figure out how are we handling these pieces. Like on this slide, and I know some people are just listening, but you're looking at about like 21 to 22 crates. So we got a full semi-truckload worth of 3D prints.
Wow.
And at first it was like, wow, these are sculptures, right?
Yeah.
These are really beautiful, pristine.
And not to I am interrupting you. I think it would be helpful. It's not obvious what it is. So you could tell our listeners, like, what was the client's idea of what is the space and what was Matt at Green Room? I mean, I know what it is. I've showed the property. beSpoke had the opportunity. It's on the market. So I know all the elements you're about to go through, but just maybe tell our listeners what that space is.
Yeah, there's a really large, I want to say maybe like 30-foot wide gathering space that's this continuous oval loop bench. There's also another piece that was titled Canoe. That's right by the front entry, this really beautiful ephemeral water sculpture. And then there's another third piece that's right outside of the master bathroom. Then there's also another ephemeral water sculpture, this big wall that's shedding water slowly and shimmering and
All
creating this
exterior features, but this round oval here is a conversation pit. It's for people to gather, sit on, talk to each other, and that sort of thing. Okay.
And this house at the time we were working on this was for a very famous football player. So all these items were like what felt like drastically scaled, but was very much appropriate for them because they're all big guys. They need a lot of space to be comfortable. So in this case, it was really fun project, a lot of firsts for everybody who was working on it. And I forgot. Maybe you want to talk.
I think
I'm talking way too much.
in this project, we kind of acted early on as the liaison between the 3D printing company and the landscape architect, because we were able to sort of interface with them before they printed the parts, since we were the ones to be doing the install, that we were able to act as like a liaison between those two entities to make the install go smoother. With a little bit of our history in digital fabrication, we knew the problems that would arise, or at least some of them, so that we could sort of plan to pivot. So we knew that making a spherical object, a round object, when you go to complete that circle, it becomes really hard because if you're off on each one of the parts, by the time you get to the end, you could be a foot or 2 foot off. We sort of foresaw that. And as we went around that circle, we realized, okay, what if we were to just print a keystone? And we wouldn't know what that keystone was until the very end of the project. But because the 3D printing company could turn that around really quickly, we were able to measure and send that and have them FedEx, that part in 2 days. And we were able to complete the project. As opposed to having to go through and try to move each one of those parts 100 times over, we sort of are leveraging the technology to make that final install seamless. And you wouldn't even know the difference because we sort of picked an area where we knew that it would blend out nicely and the geometry would still work with that keystone in there. So.
Well done. That must have been exciting to work on something like that first time with that.
Yeah.
And you can see the scale of this thing. I mean, a lot of the objects are just really large, like Mikhail had mentioned, because of the size of the athletes. There's essentially a spa that almost reads like a pool, in my opinion, but it's so big because of the 6'10" athletes that have to get in and out of it. So
the spa, let's go on to the. This is the front entry.
Yeah, that's the canoe. That's honestly one of my favorite pieces. Very ephemeral, right by the front. It's just there. It displays 2 different textures. The inside is very smooth. The outside still has the natural 3D printed layers. So it's this beautiful contrast and how it emerges in that kind of what feels like a courtyard space, but was very inactive before. You could literally just kind of sit either inside or outside in the house and enjoy the view and
the original build there's a lot of great concrete work already on the original build. So it really just needed sort of the landscape element to really tie all that stuff together. And, the green room did a really good job of revitalizing that whole space.
So all of these features that we're looking at were 3D printed.
Correct.
Yep.
Concrete.
Some of them, range, like the smaller pieces were maybe a couple 100 pounds and go up to, like that wall, I think was around 3,000 pounds. So it's big range.
All right, now what are we moving into here?
This is the spa.
This is the spa, and this is kind of this project was marrying new way of building that hasn't been used before with slightly older style with a spin to it. And this is where Evan and I came in to try to assist and now narrow down the budget because now we're getting towards the tail end and a lot of numbers have been shifted around. So went a little bit more traditional route in terms of mold making, but still utilizing the CNC instead of human labor, where that's
CNC
usually
for our listeners is
computer numeric control. I don't even know what that stands for.
It's a little robot that cuts. Robot that cuts wood essentially.
Okay.
Yeah,
but a flat one. So
cut out of the flat panels. But we're still wanted to achieve the curvature, and typically this process involves a lot of labor, and labor is the most expensive part of any project. So as Evan mentioned before, we like to front load everything and figure out how can we do this. Here's the budget that we need to be within. How can we do this within those parameters?
This is my favorite.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Out of everything on that property, that it just looks so.
Yeah, and once it's finished with all the flagstone and everything coming up to it's this one monolith that's slightly raised from above ground's beautiful.
So we've seen a lot of big projects that you've done. What if somebody just has a small feature that they want? Is that something that you do, or do they have to wait until they're a professional athlete to come?
No, we work on a ton of different projects. What we've highlighted are kind of like 3 really big ones because they're always eye candy, interesting to look at. But our day to day is, as I mentioned, we could work on a gate in the backyard all the way to Ravenscroft or Desert Botanical Gardens. The best way to activate us is if you're like, this might be difficult. Who couldn't build this? Probably floated by us because it's like I said, it's not metal or concrete or wood. We have a very diverse background in R&D and manufacturing to be able to actually figure out the process to get us there.
All right, we'd like to wrap up with a few rapid fire questions. You guys
Sure.
up for that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you guys can both answer. What material do you prefer to work with most?
Wow. That's so difficult to answer. I know
Okay.
what I don't like working with.
Okay. What
Go-
don't you like?
There's a material that's thermoplastic that nothing sticks to. It's called HDPE. So if you can barely hold a screw in it, kind of very difficult to work with. But anything outside of that, I find fun to work with.
I lean towards woodworking.
Woodworking.
Not necessarily traditional woodworking, more so millwork stuff is what I prefer to figure out myself. And then from there, that sort of lends itself to concrete, because once you can work with the wood, you can then create formwork from that. So those two kind of go hand in hand.
Nice. Precision engineering or artistic experimentation?
Why not both?
Good
Because
answer.
I think both, where we strive, or at least for me, is the symphony of two coming together. It's not just the drums, it's not just the strings, it's everything put together. It's the whole ensemble.
And we know Evan is an artist too.
Yeah.
You were talking about
Yeah,
that.
but my art leans towards precision and engineering, right? So it's art through that, and I find beauty in systems and process design, and then that's how I sort of express myself. I'm not necessarily a traditional artist, but I think it sort of ties my artistic interests with my day-to-day of sort of problem solving. So I think there's definitely beauty in the process.
Good answers. All right. What's a tip you have for homeowners dreaming of a custom architectural feature? Any tips?
Find the architect or the builder day one and work together as a team. Don't try to
Do it yourself.
shelf things off and compartmentalize. It's best to build a team and let the team help you build what you're trying to go for.
I would say once you found your team, make sure you express to them your goals for the project, so they understand where the money should be spent and where maybe we can cut some things, because a lot of times there will be that time when things have to get cut. And it's important to know where your focus on your house lies.
It's a great tip.
Clear expectations.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are going to link all of your contact information in our show notes, but if you want to tell our listeners where they could find you.
It's at By the Guild on Instagram and bytheguild.com.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
All right, that's it for today's episode of Modern Home Mastermind. If you've enjoyed this show, please like, rate, and subscribe.
Thanks to our guests for sharing their insights, and to you for learning about everything modern with us.
And if you're ready to take the next step in your real estate journey, please reach out to us at beSpoke Real Estate. And until next time, keep living, loving everything modern.